This is the Lebanon Fire District pre-trip inspection video for engines, the rescue, our water tenders, all Type 3 vehicles. Before you get started, be sure to review PS Tracks for any alerts you need to be aware of. Talk with the previous shift engineer on any issues they had over the shift. And just keep in mind that any issues that affect safety must be repaired. Developing your own routine is important to become thorough and efficient at doing these inspections. Do it the same way every time, so that way you'll know if you miss something. Step 1. Start the engine and inspect the inside of the cab. Here's where I listen for any unusual noises coming from the engine. I like to move it outdoors so I'm not smoking up the inside of the bay. I also adjust my steering wheel, my seat, and my mirrors. I want to make sure I understand my clearance and my weight of the vehicle, and any loose items that I see in the cab or any garbage. This is where I secure it and clean it out. Here's where you want to check your gauges to make sure everything's in normal operating levels. And you want to check your controls, like your horn, your windshield wipers, your lights, your accelerator, and your steering wheel. Step 2, indicators and brake check. So there are 6 different brake checks we should do every day. These are all listed in the slideshow. Fan the brakes down to about 60 to 55 psi until you see a red light and hear a buzzing chirping sound. Once my alerts and my indicators come on, I hold the brake pedal down and I look for any loss in air pressure at this system. Then, with the parking brake pushed in, you want to fan the brakes down until the knob pops out. Once the air brake system is pressurized, move forward and apply the parking brake after you go about 2 to 5 miles per hour. Watch and see if the engine pulls to the left or to the right. With the engine in gear, gently pull against your parking brake. When you go to check your indicators, you have to find your favorite person to come help you. Have them stand at the back so they can indicate to you which light is working. Check your turn signals, your hazards, your reverse lights, your side markers, your headlights, both high and low beams. Once complete with the traffic indicators, get out and do a quick walk around of your emergency lights and just any overall light. Check your scene lights as well. You're looking for any light that's not blinking that should, or any indicator that's not rotating like it should. If you notice the bulb is out, grab a replacement and replace it. This brings us to step 3. Check the engine compartment. Turn off the engine and move the ignition switch back into the on position. Ensure everything in the cab is tied down or in a secure location. Check the netting and the inner cab compartment door. Check both sides of the cabs just to be sure. Especially double check the SCBAs to make sure they're docked appropriately in those harnesses. For units 21, 22, and 23, to access the mechanism to raise the cab, you must pop the hood. Here's where I check the power steering fluid, the coolant, and the air filter. Now I'm going to raise the cab. I grab the button from behind the switch to raise the cab. I'm going to lock the SCBA bracket override and then rotate the switch into the raised position. Press the button and hold it down to raise the cab. Lift the cab until it stops raising. Raise the safety bar and seat it against the cab so it doesn't fall on you. Here's where you want to check the tire, the suspension, and the shocks. And then you want to check both sides to see if you can see the brake pad and the brake disc. Check the battery terminals. You want to look for any corrosion or any loose fittings.
Check out our reservoir over here.
Check the cab lift fluid reservoir. Check the engine oil and transmission fluid. Make sure the engine is warmed up. It's recommended that you remove the dipstick, wipe it, reinsert it, and then remove it again to check the level. If one of these fluids is below the fill line, it is recommended that it gets topped off. Make sure the right fluid is being used when topped off. Check the belt tightness. You can do this by grabbing the belt and try turning it 1/4 turn to the left or right. If it turns any more, the belt is too loose and should be written up. On this side, you could check the condition of the turbo, the coolant level from the radiator, overall condition of the belts, hoses, wires of the engine itself. You can also check underneath the engine and the right side tire, brake system, and the suspension system. When you check underneath, you want to look for any dripping. Just make note of what color the fluid is. To lower the cab, replace the bar. Pop the hood and rotate the cab lift switch to the lower position and depress the button to lower. Make sure the cab is seated by continuing to depress the button after it stops. Move the SCBA bracket override back to the auto position, replace the button back into the container, and shut the hood. And finally, step 4, do a walk-around inspection. I always start at the front left corner and make a clockwise path around the engine. I'm doing a thorough check of the exterior. Here is where you want to check your tire tread depth, your pressures. You want to look for any damage, any cracked lenses, anything that's hanging off the engine, anything that's there that shouldn't be, or not there that should be. Depth or damage or any chunks taken out of the tire, look for gashes. I'm going to climb on top of the engine, look at my fuel tank, my generator, see if everything's intact up there. Tread depth, tire pressure, leaf springs of the rear axle. The wheels and the rims are very important to double check, and also lug nuts. Sometimes you can tell if a lug nut's loose by seeing rusting or streaking. I'm even going to check my suspension and my rear axle. Reflectors, wheel bearings, any compartment doors. Make sure my splash guards, my rear lights are all in working order. For the left side, I'm just going to do what I did on the right side. Just a thorough top to bottom inspection. Make sure my air cans are intact and all my hoses for my air brake system are intact. Check the condition of my PTO and my transmission.